month might also be a very small amount of books to review, but quality over quantity, right? So I did read some books. I also bought some books, so we might combine it with a tiny little book haul at the end. Yeah, let's get into it. I'm sipping pumpkin chai tea by Yogi Tea from this Christmas mug. I actually drink from this all year round, but it's so cute, and if you've seen my cozy autumn tag, I've mentioned that my favorite type of mug is one with an ear this big, where your head does not hit the hot glass, and it's perfect and huge and very cute. Okay, let me take a sip, and let's get into it. It's, by the way, pretty witchy themed. The first book I want to talk about is The Last Witch of Scotland by Philip Paris. This is actually one of the first books in a while that I read that was written by a man. I don't mean anything by that, I just naturally gravitate towards female authors more. But I loved this book a lot. I also love the cover. The Last Witch of Scotland. I hope you don't mind the extra fabric sounds from my pillow and my clothes and everything. But yeah, this is a historical fiction type of story about the last witch of Scotland. So I'll read the synopsis to you. Scottish Highlands, 1727. In the aftermath of a tragic fire that kills her father, Isla and her mother Janet move to the remote parish of Louth, northwest of Inverness. Blending in does not come easily to the women. Isla was badly burned in the fire and left with visible injuries, while her mother struggles to maintain her grip on reality. When a temporary minister is appointed in the area, rather than welcome the two women, he develops a strange curiosity for them that sets them even further apart from the community. Then arrives a motley troupe of traveling entertainers from Edinburgh, led by a charismatic but mysterious Jack. It is just a distraction Janet, and particularly... Do you hear my stomach? It is just a distraction that Janet, and particularly Ayla, needs. For the first time in a long while, their lives are filling with joy and friendship, and a kind of hope that Ayla hasn't known since her father's death. But in this small community, faith is more powerful than truth, and whispers more dangerous even than fire. Haunting and deeply moving, The Last Witch of Scotland is a story of love, loyalty, and sacrifice, inspired by the true story of the last person to be executed for witchcraft in Britain. This was a very insightful story and a very beautiful story, based on a true story, like the synopsis says, and I really fell in love with Ayla and her mother. I just think that this was a really interesting story and very unique. It's very simple and small in its own way, but it's also really big, and I know that that's a very, very, witchy story, I would not recommend this one because it's not about witchcraft in, like, they're not casting spells because they are wrongfully accused. So it's much more about the process towards their conviction and the prejudice that's there and the dynamics in the town, and then the relationship to Ayla, Janet, and the troop. And then it follows Ayla and Janet, but it also follows the troop, and witches in this story live a very isolated life due to safety reasons, but every few months they meet up with the Secret Society of Irregular Witches, or the Secret Society of Witches. I don't remember what the actual club is called because it's slightly different from the title, which you'll learn why when you read it. And Mika is a very funny, direct, she's not literally clumsy, but she comes across as such a woman, and I really liked her. She's funny, and I think I said that already. And she makes videos on the internet where she pretends to be a witch, but she's not pretending, but for the videos she's pretending. And there's this family, this found family that has 3 witch daughters. Not 1, not 2, but 3 witchy daughters. And they need someone who can tutor them. So Ian, I think his name is, I might get the names wrong a little bit, but Ian reaches out to Mika to hire her as a live-in tutor. And the house has 2 older people who are working there. I am so bad at explaining book synopsis when I'm not reading the actual story because it's kind of all over the place. And anyway, this found family that lives in this house with the 3 girls need Mika to stay with them, and it just goes from there. Like I said, I don't want to spoil anything for you. I think that this was a very cozy read. I really liked Mika, and I liked Ken and Ian, and there's once again a slow burn romance subplot, and it's really sweet. It's just really sweet. It's definitely Grumpy Sunshine. Found family once again. It touches on loneliness and a sense of belonging, adoption, some childhood trauma and navigating that, and protecting yourself out of the fear of being hurt again and preventing yourself from opening up. I think that the emotional subjects that this touches on were really nice, and so I really enjoyed it. It wasn't like the best story I've ever read. Like I said, I was in a slump, so I wasn't really feeling any of these in the moment as much as I wish I had. But I still had a good time. So if you just want a cozy read where nothing too crazy happens and you want magic and spells and that kind of stuff, I do recommend this. It's sweet. I think I've only read a little bit of TJ Kloon's House by the Cerulean Sea, but I think this might be something you'd like to if you enjoyed that story. I feel like you might. So yeah, that was that. I am so sorry, but I completely forgot to mention 2 books. That is because they were the first ones that I read this month, and I read them on my Kindle. And every time I read something on my Kindle, I forget that it exists, which is very unfortunate, because they were very highly anticipated books for me. The first one is Wildfire by Hannah Grace. Now, if you've seen my September Reads video, I had just before that finished Icebreaker, which I loved. And her second book, Wildfire, came out on October 3rd, I believe. is always good. I say always as if she has written 15 books, but from the 2 I've read now, I would say it's good. It's just a fun romance, but for me it ended up being a bit too long and it felt a bit dragged out. So I think I gave it 4 stars, but it would be a 3.75 for me. It's still a fun read. I would definitely recommend picking it up in the summer. Yeah, I had a good time, but like I said, I was in a slump this month, so I wasn't really feeling anything that I read, really, which was sad, but I think this is more of a summery read. The other one that I forgot to mention is Hopeless by Elsie Silver. Hopeless is the final book in the Chestnut Springs series, which are standalone but interconnected small town cowboy romances. This one followed Bo Eaton, who is one of the sons, brothers, however you want to call it, who live on the ranch in Chestnut Springs. And Bo was in the army and is now dealing with PTSD and navigating his life after coming back. And it follows Bailey, who lives in the same town. They've kind of grown up around each other, but she is known to be from the wrong side of the tracks, if you will. So she's working to get out of this town and start fresh. They end up being fake fiancés, and it just kind of takes from there. I think this was my least favorite one in the series. I think that the dialogue was very, very repetitive. That just made it harder to read. I loved every single one of the series, and I mean, I enjoyed this one, but I just wasn't feeling it. I wasn't in love with Bo, guys. They are just fun, silly little summer romances. Not necessarily summer, but fun, spicy romances. I'm really glad that I read this series though, because I had such a fun time. Okay, that was it for Voiceover Fleur. We're gonna go back to the actual video now. Love you, bye. The last book that I read this month, which is also the first one of my book haul that we're going to slowly roll into, is The Tao of Pooh. The Tao of Pooh. Pooh, Pooh, Pooh Bear. presents once opened are not so much fun as they were while we were in the process of examining, lifting, shaking, thinking about it, and opening them. 365 days later, we try again and find that the same thing has happened. Each time the goal is reached, it becomes not so much fun, and we're off to reach the next one, then the next one, then the next one. That doesn't mean that the goals we have don't count. They do, mostly because they cause us to go through the process, and it's the process that makes us wise or happy. If we do things in the wrong sort of way, it makes us miserable, angry, and confused. The goal has to be right for us, and it has to be beneficial in order to ensure a beneficial process. But aside from that, it's really the process that is important. Enjoyment of the process is the secret that erases the myths of the great reward and saving time. Perhaps this can help to explain the everyday significance to the word Tao. What could we call that moment before we begin to eat the honey? Some would call it anticipation, but we think it's more than that. We would call it awareness. It's when we become happy and realize it, if only for an instant. By enjoying the process, we can stretch that awareness out so that it's no longer only a moment, but covers the whole thing. Then we can have a lot of fun, just like Pooh. I know that was a rather long passage, but I enjoyed that one so much because it's so easy to get lost in the day and to just go and go and go and work towards something, but you're missing life while you're doing that. It just passes you by. And to be reminded of those moments of awareness is always a good thing, I find. So I really resonated with that passage. So if you want to pick up a nonfiction this fall about finding contentment in your everyday life, and I think that this really is a good one. Let me grab the books that I bought. The first one kind of overlaps the Tao of Pooh in a sense, not necessarily, but in a way, and it is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And I think the cover is really cool. Let me read the back to you. Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now is a best-selling spiritual book over the last 20 years and continues to be embraced by millions of readers throughout the world. To make the journey into the now, we will need to leave our analytical mind and its false created self, the ego behind. Although the journey is challenging, Eckhart Tolle offers simple language and a question and answer format to show us how to silence our thoughts and create a liberated life. Surrender to the present moment where problems do not exist. It is here we find our joy, are able to embrace our true selves, and discover that we are already complete and perfect. If we are able to be fully present and take each step into the now, we will be opening ourselves to the transforming experience of the power of now. Now, as you all know, I'm in my burnout recovery journey, and I'm 10 months in, and I've learned so much, and I've spent a lot of time thinking about mindfulness. I've meditated a lot. I have found a lot of ease in being present, and I feel best when I feel present and in the moment. I do notice, however, as time is passing and questions are starting to arise for me again, big life decisions are happening, big changes, I find it harder to be present and in the moment and find that contentment again, which is also why I gravitated towards the Tao of Pooh. And I'm aware of Eckhart Tolle's work, and I've read a lot of quotes by him, and I really admire what he does. And I just felt like getting the actual book and having that reminder bipolar counterfeit artist undergoing court-ordered psychotherapy. By the end of the story, these things will be true, but this is not a story about endings. For Reagan, people are predictably tedious, including, and perhaps especially herself. She copes with the dreariness of existence by living impulsively, sometimes imagining a new alternate timeline springing from each rash decision. To Aldo, the world feels chaotic, so he has erected a wall of routines, a backbeat of rules. Without them, the framework of his existence would collapse. For Reagan and Aldo, life has involved resigning themselves to society's expectations, but could 6 conversations with a stranger be the variable that disrupts the entire simulation? As I was reading this, I really dissociated for a bit, because I'm so focused on reading the words that I'm not really taking them in, so I still have no idea what the story is about. And I would really like to keep it that way. So, I'm excited about this one. I do have to say, I'm still in a reading slump, and I'm at the same time very overwhelmed by the choices. So the past month, I've also started reading a lot of books and got a few pages in and then put them away because I was like, no. So I started A Swim in a Pond in the Rain. I'm still reading Wuthering Heights. I started reading The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. I started reading A Court of Wings and Ruin. And I started reading You Again, which is the book that I gave away in my book haul. I'm just being very transparent, so that's why I started reading nonfiction, because I was like, I still get to read, because I enjoy reading so much. But I wasn't feeling any fiction story, so, I don't know. I hope I get into that again, but I think it has to do with the whole me being in a general slump and disconnected. Anyway, I'm just being honest because I get a lot of messages like, how do I read more, and I want to pick up my reading, and that kind of stuff. And you have to go at your own pace, and life happens, and everyone is different in these things. So, the next one I picked up, I have to say, is gorgeous. I am obsessed with the way that this book looks. Yeah. If you were sleeping and you had your eyes closed,